My son-in-law tried to take over my farm, then learned I secretly owned his business. My son-in-law walked into my barn like he owned the place. Brandon had that swagger he always got when he thought he was about to win something. "Frank, we need to talk about the farm," he said, not even bothering with a greeting. I kept mucking out the stall, not looking up. 40 years of farming taught me that silence makes people nervous, and nervous people show their cards faster. "Olivia and I have been discussing it," Brandon continued. "You're 72. This place is too much for you to manage alone. It's time to hand over the reins." I finally looked at him. "Hand over the reins? To who?" "To me. Obviously. I'm family now. Been married to your daughter for 5 years. I know business, Frank. I can modernize this operation, make it profitable. You just relax and enjoy retirement." Profitable. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. My farm had been profitable for 4 decades. 300 acres of prime Missouri farmland, paid off, producing consistent income. But Brandon saw it differently. He saw dollar signs. "What does Olivia think about this?" I asked. Brandon's smile widened. "She agrees completely. In fact, it was partly her idea. She's worried about you, Frank. Working yourself to death out here. We want to help." That stung more than I expected. My daughter, my only child, wanting to push me off my own land. "I'll think about it," I said, going back to my work. "Don't think too long," Brandon said, his voice taking on an edge. "We are prepared to make this official. I've already talked to a lawyer about getting power of attorney. For your own protection, of course." Power of attorney. The threat was clear. They'd try to declare me incompetent if I didn't cooperate. "Get off my property," I said quietly. "Frank, don't be unreasonable," I said. "Get off my property. Now?" Brandon left, but not before giving me a look that promised this wasn't over. I stood there in my barn, pitchfork in hand, feeling every one of my 72 years. But also feeling something else. Determination. Brandon had no idea who he was messing with. He thought I was just some old farmer, easy to push around. He was about to learn differently. That night, I called my lawyer. Dennis Carter had handled my legal affairs for 20 years. We'd gone to high school together back in the 1960s, stayed friends through everything. "Dennis, I need to talk about my estate plan," I said. "Everything okay, Frank?" "Not really. Brandon's trying to take over the farm. Talked about getting power of attorney, said Olivia's on board with it." Dennis was quiet for a moment. "Can they do that?" "They can try. Proving someone's incompetent isn't easy, but with the right doctor and the right story, it's possible. I need to protect myself." "What are you thinking?" "I want to review all my assets. Everything. The farm, the investments, all of it. I want to know exactly where I stand legally. I'll pull the files. Can you come to my office tomorrow?" The next morning, I drove into town. My truck was old but reliable, like everything else in my life. Dennis's office was in a converted house on Main Street, cozy and cluttered with files. "Okay," Dennis said, spreading documents across his desk. "Let's start with the farm. 300 acres, house, barn, equipment. Free and clear, in your name only. Worth about $2 million, given current land prices. What happens to it when I die?" "According to your current will, it goes entirely to Olivia. She's your only heir." That was the problem. If Olivia sided with Brandon, I'd lose control of my life's work. "Can we change that?" "Of course. It's your property. You can leave it to anyone you want." What about a trust? Something that protects the farm even after I'm gone. Dennis nodded slowly. A trust would work. You transfer the farm into it now, maintain control as trustee during your lifetime, and designate how it's handled after you pass. You could even put conditions on Olivia's inheritance. Like what? Like she only inherits if certain conditions are met. Or you could split it between multiple beneficiaries. Or donate it to charity. Whatever you want. I thought about this. Let's hold off on that for now. What else is in my portfolio? Dennis pulled out another file. You've got about $800,000 in various investments. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Also in your name only. And the properties I bought. 2 rental houses in town, total value around $400,000. A commercial building on Highway 50 that you lease to various tenants. That commercial building. I'd almost forgotten about it. Who's leasing the commercial space right now? Dennis checked his notes. You've got 3 tenants. The insurance agency, the tax preparation office, and Brandon's construction business. My heart skipped. Brandon's business is in my building. Has been for 3 years. He leases the largest unit, about 1,500 square feet. Pays $1,500 a month. I sat back, processing this. Brandon had been renting from me for 3 years and didn't know I was his landlord. How is that possible? Dennis smiled. You bought the building through an LLC, remember? Carter Holdings. The property management company handles all the tenant interactions. Brandon probably has no idea who actually owns it. Carter Holdings. I'd named it after Dennis, as a thank you for setting it up. The LLC protected my privacy and limited liability. I'd never paid much attention to the tenants, just collected the rent checks that got deposited automatically. Tell me about Brandon's lease, I said. Standard commercial lease. 3-year term, started January of last year. So he's got about a year left. Rent is $1,500 a month, triple net, meaning he pays his share of property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. What happens when the lease is up? Either you renew it, renegotiate terms, or decline to renew. Landlord's choice. An idea was forming. A perfect, beautiful idea. Don't tell anyone I own that building. Not Olivia, not Brandon, nobody. Frank, Olivia's your daughter. Don't you think she should know? She's also married to a man trying to steal my farm. Until I figure out what's going on, I'm keeping my cards close. Dennis agreed, though he looked worried. I went home and did something I hadn't done in years. I Googled Brandon's business. Apex Construction had a professional website with photos of completed projects. Houses, renovations, commercial buildings. Brandon's photo was prominent, along with his bio. Brandon Mitchell, owner and CEO. 10 years of experience in construction management. Dedicated to quality and customer satisfaction. 10 years of experience. He'd started Apex right before meeting Olivia. They'd met at some charity event, hit it off, got married within a year. I'd had concerns from the beginning. Brandon was smooth, charming, said all the right things. But there was something hollow behind his eyes. Something calculating. Olivia had been defensive when I'd mentioned my doubts. You don't want me to be happy, she'd accused. You want me to stay single forever so I can take care of you. That had hurt. I'd raised Olivia alone after her mother died of cancer when Olivia was 12. I'd poured everything into being both parents. Maybe I'd been too protective. Maybe I'd made her feel trapped. So I'd backed off. Smiled at the wedding. Welcomed Brandon into the family. tried to build a relationship with him. It had never felt genuine on his end. Always this sense he was performing, playing a role. Now he was showing his true colors. Over the next week, I watched and listened. Brandon started coming by the farm more often. Always with suggestions. You should sell the north pasture. Developers would pay top dollar for land that close to town. This equipment is ancient. I know a dealer who could set you up with new tractors. Have you thought about converting to organic? That's where the money is. Each suggestion was about maximizing profit, never about the land itself. Never about the legacy. My daughter came by on Thursday, looking uncomfortable. Dad, we need to talk about Brandon's proposal. I'm listening. He really does want to help. He's got business experience that could take this farm to the next level. And honestly, Dad, you're not getting any younger. What happens if you get sick? Have an accident? I'm healthy as a horse, Olivia. For now. But what about next year? 5 years from now? Someone needs to be ready to take over. That someone doesn't have to be Brandon. She frowned. Why not? His family. Family means more than just marriage papers. It means respect, trust, putting others first. Brandon doesn't respect me, Liv. He wants my land, not a relationship with me. That's not fair. He's trying to help. By threatening power of attorney. By going behind my back to lawyers. Olivia's face flushed. He told you about that? He did. Quite proudly, actually. It wasn't meant as a threat. Just as a precaution. So if something happened to you, we could handle your affairs. I've got everything handled. Trust me on that. She left angry. I hated fighting with my daughter. But I wasn't going to be bullied into giving up my life's work. The following Tuesday, I got a call from Dennis. Frank, you need to see this. I drove back to his office. He had a stack of papers waiting. I did some digging into Brandon's business. Called in some favors with the county recorder's office. And? Brandon's in trouble. Serious financial trouble. He took out a big loan 2 years ago, used his business as collateral. He's behind on payments. The bank's threatening foreclosure. My stomach sank. How behind? 4 months. He owes about $80,000. If he doesn't catch up soon, the bank will seize his business assets. Does Olivia know? I doubt it. This kind of thing doesn't become public until it's really bad. Brandon's probably been hiding it from her. That explained everything. Brandon didn't want the farm for its agricultural value. He wanted it to liquidate. 300 acres at $2 million could solve all his financial problems. There's more, Dennis said. I found out he's been talking to developers. Getting quotes on what the land would be worth if it was subdivided and sold as housing lots. How much? Close to $4 million. Maybe more if he got the right zoning approvals. $4 million. Enough to save his business, pay off his debts, and still have plenty left over. All at the cost of my family's legacy. What are my options? I asked. Legally, he can't force you to sell. The farm is yours. Even if he got power of attorney, which is unlikely, he'd have to prove selling the farm was in your best interest. Hard to do when you're healthy and competent. But he could wear me down. Make my life miserable until I give in. Possibly. Or, Dennis paused. Or what? Or you could use your leverage. You own his building. That gives you power over him. I thought about this carefully. What kind of power? His lease is up in a year. You could choose not to renew. Force him to relocate his business. That's expensive and disruptive. Or you could raise his rent significantly. Make it harder for him to operate. That feels dirty. Like I'm stooping to his level. You'd be protecting yourself. There's a difference. I went home to think. That evening, I sat on my porch watching the sunset over my fields. This land had been my father's before me. He'd bought it in 1955, worked it until he died in 1980. I'd taken over at 28 years old, newly married with a baby daughter. My wife Laura had loved this place as much as I did. We'd raised Olivia here. Taught her to ride horses, to drive a tractor, to appreciate the simple satisfaction of growing things. When Laura got sick, this farm had been her comfort. She'd spent her last month sitting on this porch, watching the seasons change one final time. I'd promised her I'd take care of Olivia. Keep her safe. But I'd also promised to protect this land. To pass it down. Brandon was threatening both those promises. The next morning, I made a decision. I called Dennis. Set up a meeting with Brandon. Tell him the building owner wants to discuss the lease. You sure about this, Frank? I'm sure. Don't tell him I'm the owner yet. Let him show up expecting to meet with Carter Holdings. Dennis chuckled. This ought to be interesting. The meeting was scheduled for Friday at Dennis's office. I arrived early and waited in the conference room. At 10 a.m. sharp, Brandon walked in. He stopped short when he saw me. Frank? What are you doing here? Sit down, Brandon. Where's the building owner? I got a message saying he wanted to meet. You're looking at him. Carter Holdings is my LLC. I own the building your business is in. Brandon's face went through several emotions. Confusion, then understanding, then anger. You've owned it this whole time. 3 years. Since before you leased it. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me you were planning to steal my farm? Brandon sat down heavily. I'm not stealing anything. I'm trying to help. By going behind my back. By threatening power of attorney. By getting quotes from developers. His face paled. How do you know about the developers? I know a lot of things, Brandon. I know your business is failing. I know you're 4 months behind on a loan. I know you need money badly and think my farm is your solution. I don't have to listen to this. Brandon stood up. Actually, you do. Because your lease is up next year. And I'm not planning to renew it. Brandon froze. You can't do that. I absolutely can. It's my building. I can choose not to renew any tenant's lease. That's blackmail. No, it's business. You're the one who's big on business, right? Making tough decisions. Brandon's hands clenched into fists. What do you want? I want you to leave my farm alone. Stop trying to convince Olivia to push me out. Stop talking to developers. Accept that the farm will stay in the family, managed by me, until I decide otherwise. And if I do that, your lease gets renewed. Same terms, same rent. We all move on with our lives. Brandon's jaw worked. I need that farm sale. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You overextended yourself, made bad business decisions, and now you're desperate. But I'm not going to sacrifice my legacy to bail you out. Olivia will hate you for this. Maybe. But at least I'll still have my farm. Brandon stormed out. Dennis looked at me with concern. You know this is going to get ugly. It already was ugly. Now at least I'm fighting back. That evening, Olivia called. Dad, what did you do? Her voice was sharp with anger. Brandon came home furious. Said you threatened his business. I didn't threaten anything. I simply informed him I own his building and won't be renewing his lease if he continues trying to take over my farm. How can you own his building? You're just a farmer. Just a farmer. Olivia, I've been investing for 40 years. I own property all over this county. I'm not some ignorant hick for your husband to manipulate. He's not manipulating anyone. He's trying to help you. By lying to you about his financial situation. Did you know his business is failing? That he's months behind on a major loan. Silence on the other end. He told you it was going well, didn't he? I continued. That business was booming. That he could afford to take on managing the farm. Dad, stop. He needs money, Olivia. Desperately. And he sees my farm as a quick solution. Sell the land to developers, pocket millions, save his failing business. Never mind that it would destroy everything I've built. You're making him sound like a villain. Maybe because he's acting like one. I can't believe you'd threaten your own son-in-law like this. I can't believe my daughter would support someone trying to steal from her father. Olivia hung up. I sat there feeling the weight of what I'd lost. My relationship with my daughter, already strained, was now broken. But what choice did I have? Let Brandon steamroll over me? Give up everything to keep the peace? No. Some things were worth fighting for. Over the weekend, I didn't hear from Olivia. On Monday, I got a letter from an attorney. Not Dennis, a different lawyer from a firm in Kansas City. Brandon was suing me for breach of contract and harassment. The letter claimed I was using my position as his landlord to illegally coerce him into abandoning his legitimate concerns about my mental capacity. It was nonsense, but it was also expensive nonsense. I'd have to hire lawyers, file responses, possibly go to court. I called Dennis. They are trying to bury you in legal fees, he said after reading the letter. Hoping you'll give up rather than fight. I'm not giving up. Then we fight. But Frank, this is going to cost money and energy. Are you sure it's worth it? I looked out my office window at the fields I'd worked for 40 years. It's worth it. Dennis filed a response denying all claims. He also filed a countersuit for defamation, arguing that Brandon's claims about my mental capacity were false and damaging. The legal battle dragged on for months. Depositions, document requests, endless meetings with lawyers. Through it all, I kept working the farm. Planting, harvesting, maintaining equipment. Proving I was still capable, still sharp. Olivia didn't call. Didn't visit. The silence from my daughter hurt worse than any lawsuit. Then in November, something unexpected happened. Brandon showed up at the farm. Alone. Frank, we need to talk. I was working on my tractor in the barn. Your lawyers should talk to my lawyers. Forget the lawyers. This is just between us. I wiped my hands on a rag and waited. I'm dropping the lawsuit, Brandon said. Why? Because I can't afford to keep fighting it. My business is circling the drain. The legal fees are killing me. I need to focus on survival, not winning some principal fight. Smart decision. Brandon looked at the ground. I also need to apologize. You were right. I was desperate. Saw your farm as a way out of my problems. It was wrong. Yes, it was. I've been lying to Olivia about how bad things are. She thinks the business is doing fine. She doesn't know about the loan, about the bank threatening foreclosure. You need to tell her. I know. I'm scared she'll leave me. Maybe she will. Or maybe she'll stand by you. But she deserves the truth either way. Brandon nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I do care about her. I didn't marry her for your money or your farm. I loved her. Still do. I just got in over my head and made terrible choices. We all make mistakes, Brandon. The question is what you do next. He left looking more defeated than I'd ever seen him. Part of me felt bad for him. But mostly I felt relieved. The threat to my farm was over. 2 days later, Olivia called. Dad, we need to talk. In person. She came over that afternoon. We sat on the porch, awkward silence between us. Brandon told me everything, she finally said. About the loan, the financial problems, why he wanted the farm. I'm sorry, sweetheart. No, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. Should have questioned why he was so insistent about taking over. You wanted to trust your husband. That's not wrong. I also wanted to believe you were losing your edge. Getting old and confused. It was easier than admitting my marriage was built on lies. Tears ran down her face. I put my arm around her. What are you going to do? I don't know. Brandon's been honest with me now, which is something. But I'm not sure I can trust him again. That's a decision only you can make. He asked if we could live here. On the farm. Help you run it, but without taking it over. He says he wants to learn from you, do things the right way. I considered this carefully. How do you feel about that? I think I'd like it. If you're open to it. I've missed this place. Missed you. We worked out an arrangement. Brandon would close his failing business, take a job with a local construction company as a project manager. Steady income, less stress. He and Olivia would move into the old farmhouse that my parents had lived in. It needed work, but Brandon could renovate it himself. In exchange for living there rent-free, they'd help with farm work on weekends and evenings. It wasn't the setup I'd imagined, but it felt right. That winter, Brandon proved himself. He worked hard, asked questions instead of giving orders, respected my experience. We rebuilt the old farmhouse together. He was good with his hands, I'd give him that. Why did you become a farmer? He asked one day while we were replacing rotten floorboards. My dad was a farmer. His dad was a farmer. It's what I knew. Did you ever want to do something else? Sometimes. When I was young, I thought about being a veterinarian. But the farm needed me, so I stayed. Do you regret it? I thought about that. No. This land, this life, it gave me everything that matters. A home. A family. Purpose. Money's nice, but it's not everything. Brandon was quiet for a while. I focused too much on money. Thought success meant big profits, expansion, growth. But I was miserable. Stressed all the time. Lying to everyone, including myself. So what now? Now I work a regular job. Help you here. Figure out what actually matters. It sounded like he meant it. By spring, things had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Brandon went to work, came home, helped with evening chores. Olivia got a part-time job as a teacher's aide at the local school. We had Sunday dinners together, just the three of us. One evening after dinner, I pulled out some papers. I've updated my will and estate plan. I want you both to see it. Olivia looked nervous. Dad, you don't have to, I want to. You should know what's planned. Dennis had helped me create a comprehensive trust. The farm would go to Olivia when I died, but with conditions. She had to maintain it as working farmland for at least 10 years. Couldn't sell or subdivide it. If she didn't want to farm it herself, she had to lease it to someone who would. After 10 years, you can do what you want with it, I explained. Sell it, keep it, whatever. But that 10-year period protects the legacy. Gives you time to appreciate what it means. Olivia was crying. Thank you, Dad. There's more. I'm also leaving you the commercial property and rental houses. That's about $1 million in real estate that generates steady income. You won't have to worry about money. Dad, that's too much. It's yours. You're my daughter. I want you taken care of. I looked at Brandon. I'm also renewing your business lease. 5-year term this time, with an option to buy the space if you want. Brandon looked shocked. Why would you do that? Because you've earned it. You've changed. Proved you can be trusted. If you want to start another business someday, you'll have the space to do it. I don't deserve this. Maybe not. But Olivia does. And I want my daughter happy. That summer was one of the best I'd had in years. Working alongside my daughter and son-in-law, teaching them about farming, sharing meals and stories. Brandon had opened up about his past. He'd grown up poor, watched his parents struggle. That drove him to build a business, prove he could succeed. But somewhere along the way, success became an obsession. He lost sight of why he was working so hard. I don't want to make those mistakes again, he told me one evening. We were sitting on the porch, watching the fireflies. Then don't. Remember what matters. Family, health, peace of mind. Those are worth more than any bank account. You really believe that? I know it. I've lived it for 72 years. Brandon smiled. You're a wise man, Frank. I'm just old. But sometimes that's the same thing. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to the crickets, watching the stars come out. In August, Brandon came to me with an idea. What if we started a small construction side business? Just small projects. Renovations, repairs. I could run it on weekends, maybe hire a helper eventually. What would you call it? I was thinking Mitchell Family Construction. Put Olivia on the paperwork too. Make it a family thing. Sounds good. But run it smart this time. No big loans, no overextending. Agreed. Slow and steady. I helped him get set up. Used some connections in town to get him his first few clients. Within 6 months, he had steady weekend work. Nothing huge, but enough to rebuild his reputation and make extra money. Olivia started helping too. She had a good eye for design, helped clients visualize renovations. They made a good team. That December, Olivia announced she was pregnant. You're going to be a grandfather, she said, beaming. I hugged her, feeling tears in my eyes. Your mother would have been so happy. I know. I wish she could be here. She is. In you. In this farm. In the family we are building. The baby arrived in July. A boy they named Robert, after my father. Holding my grandson for the first time, I felt everything come full circle. This was what it was all about. Not the land itself, but what the land represented. Continuity. Family. Legacy. Brandon turned out to be a natural father. Patient, involved, present. I want to do better than my dad did, he told me. He was always working, never around. I want Robert to know me. Then be here. That's all it takes. As Robert grew, I taught him the same things I'd taught Olivia. How to feed the chickens. How to pet the horses. How to spot a ripe tomato. Simple lessons that connected him to the land. By the time Robert was 3, Brandon's construction business had grown enough that he could go full-time. He quit his project manager job and focused entirely on Mitchell Family Construction. "Are you sure about this?" I asked. "What if it fails again? Then I'll get another job." "But Frank, I'm ready. I've learned from my mistakes. I'm doing this right." He was. The business grew steadily but sustainably. He hired 2 employees, leased equipment instead of buying, maintained healthy cash reserves. No desperate gambles. No lies. Just honest work and steady growth. When I turned 75, we had a big birthday party at the farm. Friends from town, distant relatives, neighbors I'd known for decades. Everyone gathered in the barn, decorated with lights and streamers. Brandon gave a speech. 3 years ago, I almost destroyed this family. I was greedy, desperate, and stupid. Frank had every right to cut me out of his life. But he didn't. Instead, he gave me a chance to change. To become the man I should have been all along. Frank, you saved my marriage. You saved me. Thank you. The crowd applauded. I felt embarrassed but touched. Later, Dennis pulled me aside. "You did good, Frank." Not many men would have given Brandon a second chance. His family. You don't give up on family. Even when family tries to steal from you. Especially then. Because that's when they need you most. Dennis raised his beer. To stubborn old farmers who know better than the rest of us. We clinked bottles and drank. That night, after everyone left, I sat on my porch with Olivia. Robert was asleep inside. Brandon was cleaning up the barn. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Olivia said. "Anything." "When Brandon first tried to take over the farm, did you know it would work out like this? That we'd end up here, happy?" "No. I just knew I had to protect what mattered. The rest was luck and grace. I'm glad you fought. Glad you didn't let him bully you." "Me too, sweetheart." We sat watching the stars, comfortable in the silence. This was what peace felt like. What victory felt like. Not defeating Brandon, but transforming him. Not protecting the farm from family, but protecting it for family. When I turned 78, Dennis retired and moved to Florida. Before he left, we had lunch at our favorite diner. "You did better than I expected with Brandon," Dennis said. "Expected him to stay crooked. Expected you to hold a grudge. But you forgave him. Let him rebuild. Grudges are heavy to carry." "I'm too old for heavy." Dennis laughed. "You're a better man than me, Frank. Just a luckier one." After Dennis left, I relied more on Brandon for advice. He'd learned enough about business and farming to be genuinely helpful. We'd discuss equipment purchases, crop rotations, financial planning. He'd become the son I never had. One spring morning, I found I couldn't get out of bed easily. My back hurt, my joints ached. Age was finally catching up. Olivia wanted me to see a doctor. "It's just old age," I protested. "You're not that old. Go get checked." The doctor ran tests. Found some arthritis, some minor heart issues, nothing too serious. But he was concerned about me living alone and managing the farm. "You need help, Frank. Daily help." Brandon and Olivia immediately offered to move into the main house. "We can convert the downstairs office into a bedroom for you. You won't have to do stairs." "What about your house?" "We'll rent it out. Use the income to help with farm expenses." So we became a 3-generation household. Robert loved having Grandpa around all the time. I loved watching him grow, teaching him things, being part of his daily life. Brandon took over most of the physical farm work. I supervised, advised, stayed involved without overextending myself. It was the perfect arrangement. On my 80th birthday, we had another big party. This time, Brandon didn't make a speech. Instead, he gave me a gift. A framed photo of 4 generations of farmers. My grandfather, my father, me, and Robert standing in the same field at roughly the same ages. I had it made from old photos, Brandon explained. To show the legacy. I looked at those faces spanning a century. All standing on the same land. All connected by something bigger than themselves. This is perfect, I said, my voice breaking. Thank you. That night, I updated my will one final time. The farm would go to Olivia as planned. But I added a provision that Robert, when he came of age, would have the option to take over from his mother if he wanted. The legacy would continue. Another generation with the choice to carry it forward. And if Robert chose differently, that would be okay too. Because the point wasn't forcing anyone to be a farmer. The point was giving them the option. Preserving something valuable long enough for the next generation to appreciate it. I'm 82 now. My body isn't what it was, but my mind stays sharp. I still give advice, still walk the fields when I can, still sit on my porch watching sunsets. Brandon runs the farm now. Does a good job of it too. Listens to my suggestions, but makes his own decisions. That's how it should be. Olivia works full-time as a teacher. Robert's in middle school, already talking about agriculture programs and 4-H. He might be a farmer. Might not. Either way, he'll know his roots. Sometimes I think about that day Brandon walked into my barn, swagger in his step, trying to take over my life. If someone had told me then that we'd end up here, a functional family working together, I wouldn't have believed them. But that's the thing about people. They can change. Not always. Not easily. But sometimes, with the right pressure and the right support, they become who they were meant to be. Brandon was meant to be a good husband, father, and farmer. He just needed to lose everything to figure that out. And me? I was meant to be stubborn enough to give him that chance. My son-in-law tried to take over my farm. But what he didn't know was that I secretly owned his business, and a whole lot more. That leverage gave me power. But what I did with that power made all the difference. I could have destroyed him. Instead, I rebuilt him. And in doing so, I built something better than I had before. A real family. A true legacy. A farm that would continue long after I was gone. Some days, sitting on this porch, I feel my wife Laura beside me. Feel her smile. Know she's proud of what we built. Not just the land, but the love. That's the real inheritance. Not the acres or the equipment, or the property deeds. The love that holds a family together through mistakes and forgiveness. The love that turns enemies into family. The love that makes all this worth fighting for.